Without further ado, I want to bring up our next speaker. In addition to being one of the select few U.S. citizens who have received Cuba's Medal of Friendship, Leslie Cagan. You know Leslie. Was the director of one of the early U.S.-Cuba solidarity projects called the Cuba Information Project. Does anybody remember CIP, Cuba Information Project? I have a few gray hairs, but I remember Cuba Information Project. Leslie was also a member of many of the earliest Venceremos brigades, as well as chair of the anti-war coalition United for Peace and Justice and co-chair of committees of correspondence for democracy and socialism. Please join me in welcoming our sister, Leslie Cagan.
Hi, everyone. In 1999, on this night, an unarmed immigrant named Amadou Diallo was shot and killed by the New York City police. So I ask you to please take a moment and remember Amadou Diallo. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm fighting a cold, so I'm tired. I don't know about anybody else, but these last few weeks, few months have been kind of busy. Anyway, I am humbled to be here tonight, to be in this room with each and every one of you. Tonight, we remember, we celebrate, and we honor Fidel Castro. But we cannot fully do that unless we are also honoring and celebrating the Cuban people and the Cuban Revolution. Sorry about this. Fidel, people, the revolution, there is no way to separate them out. They are one. Fidel was always anchored in his relationship to the Cuban people. Yes, he was their leader in so many ways and for so many years. But the continuity of his leadership was based on that relationship with the Cuban people. He spoke to them and he heard what they said to him. He taught them just as he learned from them. He loved the Cuban people and they loved him even when they didn't always agree. At the same time, as we know, Fidel was the living example of international solidarity, an example that people around the world respected and today respect and learn from. He, and in a miraculous way, that small nation of Cuba became a leader in the global struggles against imperialism, colonialism, injustice, and war. Fidel and Cuba understood that sending doctors and teachers and technicians in many fields could be more important than sending weapons. Of course, when it was necessary to fight, whether at the Bay of Pigs or in the African struggle against apartheid, Fidel and Cuba were prepared and willing to do so. Sorry. I feel, and I hope all of you do, And my life has been blessed to live in the times of people like Fidel Castro and Ho Chi Minh and Nelson Mandela and Che Guevara. People like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Yes, those are all men. They are certainly all men, tall, proud men. But let us not for one moment forget the women who were so often the backbone of our struggles for freedom and justice. Let me say a few of their names. Madam Bin, Winnie Mandela, Heidi Santa Maria and Vilma Espin, Dolores Huerta and Rosa Parks. And there are those who throughout history have struggled and whose names we will never know, but whose principles and actions were just as important. People like those in the White Rose Society, a group led by students and a professor at the University of Munich in Germany. In June of 1942, they started an anonymous leaflet and graffiti campaign that called for active opposition to the Nazis. 1942. In February of 1943, their core group was arrested by the Gestapo and later was sentenced to death or imprisonment. They stood up and spoke out against fascism when too many were too silent. We need to remember that. We are in a particularly difficult time in this country, and I certainly cannot predict how this will end. Although it should give us all great hope that so many people in every corner of our country are in the streets every day. We are not going down silently. We are making a fuss. What I do know is that the lifelong struggle of Fidel has so much to teach us as we battle the authoritarian forces now in power right here at home. Fidel will always be a beacon of hope and inspiration for all of us. His legacy lives on in our struggles today and into the future, wherever they unfold in the world. This evening, we take a moment to celebrate this incredible man who led the revolutionary struggle of his people, always connecting that struggle to movements and revolutions throughout the world. We will for sure miss the man, but we will never, never forget the lessons he taught us or the example he set for us. Hasta la victoria siempre. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. We're gonna have some more culture now. First, Frank Vergara should be a name that's familiar to many in this room. He's a member of the New York, New Jersey Cuba C coalition that put on this event. He's a member of the July 26th coalition. He's been active in the Puerto Rican and Cuba solidarity movements for over 40 years. He's the co-coordinator of the Pro Libertad Freedom Campaign and represents the Socialist Front of Puerto Rico in New York City. He works with the Jericho Movement, Committee to Free Leonard Peltier, and the New York Vieques Solidarity Committee. We welcome him now. He'll be sharing a beautiful poem with us that's called Mi Hermano Fidel, My Brother Fidel, which he wrote when the news of Fidel's passing reached him. So please welcome Frank Vergara.
Sisters and brothers, Compañeras y compañeros, first I say to you, Oscar Lopez Rivera is free. Oscar Lopez Rivera is free. And we will free Puerto Rico. I stand before you tonight, the proud son of two warrior women, my mother and my grandmother, and a proud rebellious socialist who's never been afraid to claim my second homeland, Cuba Revolucionaria. Cuba Revolucionaria, mi segunda patria. I come before you with a heart full of love and rage. Love for Fidel, love for the people of Cuba, and rage that we continue to fight the powers that be, whether they be Trump or any other racist in this country. We continue to fight for the liberation of all our countries represented here. Okay, and there are many. So before I read you my poem, I want to say proudly, yo soy Fidel. Yo soy Fidel. Yo soy Fidel. Gracias, compañera y compañero. When I heard of Fidel's passing, the only thing I could compare it to is when my grandmother was ill. You know, they're getting on, it's inevitable. But when they pass, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You're never prepared for that day when you're not going to be able to kiss and hold them any longer. So I cried, and in my sorrow, I got on my computer and I wrote this. This is the first time I read one of my poems publicly, and I've been writing since 1970. Fidel me inspiró eso. Gracias, Fidel. Mi hermano Fidel, te conocí en los ojos de mi querida abuela, mujer guerrillera, militante del Partido Nacionalista de Borinquén. Te conocí cuando encontré mi verdadero camino, boricua rebelde, socialista, militante por un Puerto Rico libre. Te conocí en cada protesta de mis hermanos y hermanas indígenas, negros, asiáticos, cuando con puño en alto gritaban, todo poder a pueblo, abajo el racismo. Te conocí cuando entendí y aprendí a reclamar en voz alta, segunda patria, Cuba revolucionaria. Tu historia es mi historia, compartida con la humanidad. Tu indignación ante la injusticia es mi indignación. Tu pueblo es mi pueblo. Eres de todos nosotros los pueblos rebeldes y en lucha, de las grandes masas que aspiran a un mundo mejor. Tu ejemplo dice patria, proclama pueblo cimarrón, revolución de valor y sacrificio, amor verdadero y candente. Gloria eterna a mi hermano y camarada, orden y mande comandante, presente estamos. My emotional language is Spanish, but I translate everything because I know my reality. To my brother Fidel, I met you in the eyes of my beloved grandmother, a warrior woman, militant member of the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico. I met you when I found my real path in life, militant Boricua socialist dedicated to the struggle for a free Puerto Rico. I met you in every protest of my black, indigenous, and Asian brothers and sisters when they raised their fists high with the battle cry, all power to the people, fight racism. I met you when I understood and learned how to demand and proclaim loudly, revolutionary Cuba is my second homeland. Your history is my history, shared with all of humanity. Your indignation in the face of injustice is my indignation. Your people are my people. You belong to all peoples in rebellion and struggle for freedom, to the dispossessed masses who dare to aspire to a better world. Your example says homeland. It gives honor to defiant people in struggle. It speaks volumes of revolution, courage, and sacrifice. It is true love. Eternal glory, my brother and comrade. Orden y mande, comandante, presente estamos. Gracias.
Treat for you all. We are very excited to welcome the world-renowned Cuban jazz pianist Dayramir Gonzalez Lisset and the composer and violinist Tatiana Ferrer. Dayramir was born in Havana during the special period, where, thanks to the commitment of the Cuban Revolution, the leadership of Fidel, despite facing the shortages that they were facing at this time, he had access to high-quality, free musical education. After studying at some of the most prestigious institutions for music in Havana, he became the first Cuban national to be awarded a full scholarship to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Needless to say, he's an incredibly talented and brilliant composer and performer. He's the recipient of numerous awards both in Cuba and the US. Today he lives in New York, where he's founded the Art School of Contemporary Performance and Creativity to provide comprehensive, accessible music education to young people in this city. And he'll be performing alongside Tatiana Ferrer, another wonderful composer and a talented violinist, who also attended the Berklee College of Music, where she was a World Scholarship Award recipient. She's the founder and musical director of the contemporary string ensemble String Bembe, and for the last 5 years she's worked as a teacher and coordinator of specialized music courses in Boston and New York. We are so excited and honored to have them with us tonight. Please put your hands together. Dayramir Gonzalez and Tatiana Ferrer.
Before I do what I feel more comfortable doing, which is playing, this is my way of communication. I managed to craft my English a little more when I was at Berklee, and I was able to put in my vocabulary not only 5 words, up to 10. So we try to reuse those 10 words to be able to express how happy and you know, how much I admire each of you guys to be here today supporting Fidel Castro and supporting the Cuban Revolution. You know, I said it and I mean it because, you know, being a revolutionary in this country, in the United States, when you raise your voice to really support the Fidel Castro, to support everything, the good thing that Fidel Castro, the great thing that Fidel Castro have done, not only for Cuba, for the whole Latin America, the example that Fidel Castro represents, for everything that he has been able to have the foundation, for not only the ones who are low income, no, for everybody. This is really, the revolution is for everybody. It's really hard to be a revolutionary in this country because the media, everybody wants to squish you, everybody want to close your mouth, to say, don't say the truth, do not say what people don't want to hear. And people like me, you know, I'm always fighting against those people. I'm always trying to portray the great thing that the revolution has done for us. And it's very, you know, it's very inspirational, you know, because I grew up in a family where we definitely support the Cuban Revolution. And since I was 16 years old, I was able to travel the whole world, going to Canada, Copenhagen, Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, everywhere, performing with Buenavista Social Club, performing with Omar Portuondo, performing with Chucho Valdez, with everybody in the world, in the most prestigious stages in the world. Now I'm here, living here in the United States, and was able to really put in a balance, you know, the great things that we actually have in Cuba. This is something that happens that is very funny. and I will make it in a very simple example. I will say that probably just 10% of Cubans that live in Cuba have a picture in front of the capital, of the Cuban capital. And many Americans, or let's say foreign people that go to Cuba, they are dying to go to Cuba to have that picture there. So it's kind of what you have there. I mean, what you have, what you born listening to that, take it for granted. The special education that we have. And somehow many Cubans, unfortunately, don't appreciate what we have. And now being here in this country, where you know that this country could be great for 13 things, but please do not get sick. If you get sick, you are screwed. Go home. Seriously. This is you can tell me whatever that your economy, whatever, don't get sick in this country. You get cancer, forget about it. If you are not part of the 1 point, how you call it, the 1% of those richer Jewish people, whatever, forget it. Yeah, forget it. It doesn't happen. Well, just I want to say that. That I'm very, very happy to see the immense support that the Cuban Revolution continued to have, and the great legacy that Fidel Castro really put here for us. I didn't graduate from ELAM, but I graduated from the National School of Music and the Institute of Cuban Art, which is one of the strongest music education in the entire world. When I go to Berklee College of Music, I realized how good, how well prepared I was. Many friends of mine, they were also killing, playing the drums, singing amazing, but they didn't have the amazing foundation as that I had in everything. Being not only, and the difference was not only to be just a simple piano player that can go here to play. No, you have to be an artist. You have to be a leader. You have to be a model that people that follow what follow your example in many ways. For example, and imagine that you get to Berklee and you see these amazing drummers, but they don't know nothing about politics. They don't know about healthcare. They don't know about social stuff that happen in the world in general. So you have to be a very general. Everything has to be combined. I'm going to perform for you guys today 2 songs. The first one is going to be piano solo, and I'm going to dedicate it to Fidel Castro, because I will always say that when I hear the word of Fidel, it comes to me gratitude. That's the first thing that I always say. Thank you, Fidel Castro, for being able to provide amazing opportunity for us to have education, free education, but a comprehensive education, and one of the top ones. It's amazing because in this country, education and healthcare is not a priority. You know that. It's a luxury to go to Berklee College of Music. I was the only Cuban accepted, but I always say, Harold Lopez Nusa was killing what could have been my position, Rolando Luna, Aldo Lopez Gavilan, so many amazing Cuban piano players that could have been in the same position like me, not only me. I'm the result of many, many, many artists that have been developing a great career in Cuba, sense of the foundation that we have. And I will play the first song that is called Manicero, the Peanut Vendor. It's a very popular song, Cuban song. And I want to give a big hug, to our friends in the Cuban missions. Porque yo sé que ustedes están aquí en el forefront, luchando por nuestros ideales y manteniendo a Cuba bien en alto. Un beso para todos ustedes y les tengo mucho respeto, sin duda. And today is special because I'm bringing today my wife, Tatiana Ferrer. Come here before you perform. It is special because Tatiana in 2010 we met, and she comes from not a wealthy family, but let's say economically stable family in Los Angeles. I would say capitalism family, and she was. And I listen. I do have a point. I haven't finished. Okay, I'm still working my 10 words. Okay, I haven't finished.
Still learning English.
I'm still working.
He's still learning English.
What I want to say is that, we have been together, and she was able to realize by going firsthand and experiencing firsthand the amazing thing that we have in Cuba, that Cuba is an example also for the United States, that there is a lot of social stuff that have to be included here in this system. And I would like you please to tell your experience in short words about your experience this year being together and being close to Cuba.
Hi, how are you guys doing? The first time I went to Cuba in 2011, I was very impressed with the way the government prioritized education, and growing up as an American, and realizing later in my, growing up in my late teens and early 20s, realizing that our education system here is just so below average. And I always fought for and ever since I had developed or understood that our education system was just terrible, I always had this vision in my mind to improve the education system in this country. And I want to at least try to do that through music. That's where I want to go, and Cuba is definitely that example. So we're gonna play for you some things that represent what we stand for. Thank you.
Before we continue to the second song, I want to say that we have today one of the biggest supporters of the Cuban Revolution, someone that had the opportunity, the luxury, the pleasure to meet personally Fidel Castro, and actually someone who was able to organize the first visit to Fidel Castro to the South Bronx in 1995. We have Julio Babon. I want to invite Julio Babon. Come here, please. Come here, Julio. Come here. Julio Babon, one of the biggest supporters of the Cuban Revolution. Julio Babon had this book that is called No Cagan, where he put together all his memory of that amazing opportunity to bring in Fidel Castro, against all pronouncement. Julio said briefly a little bit about this book.
I just want to say in 1995, I've been a South Bronx resident since 1956, and I'm just tired of other people saying our stories. I'm tired of other people reporting our stories. I'm not a writer, I'm not an author, but my kids kept on telling me, you should write it. It took me 2.5 years, and we got so much support from the Cuban government. The bottom line is, we wrote the book, knocked out Fidel Castro Visits of South Bronx. It was against an insult by Mayor Giuliani. I'll let you read it and tell me what you think. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful treat. For those of you in the front, just turn around, just take a look. Just take a look at this overflow crowd. Wow. I'm sorry we don't have more seats, but it's very heartwarming to see so many people filling this room, and we're grateful that you're here. I want to just mention two things before we ask our next speaker to come up. Number one is I'd like to recognize Reverend Herbert Daughtry. Reverend Daughtry from the House of the Lord Church in Brooklyn. Great friend of Cuba, thank you so much for being here. I know that you were out and paying homage to Amadou Diallo, who we lifted up earlier tonight, but thank you for being here this evening. The other thing I want to say is, for those of you to my right, your left, take a look at this beautiful mural. Is this mural gorgeous or what? Stunning, stunning. We're honored on this special occasion to introduce to New York, Cuba's new Cuban ambassador to the United Nations. It's an opportunity for New York's Cuba Solidarity community to receive this newly appointed diplomat to the UN, the Honorable Anayansi Rodriguez. The ambassador comes to us from Switzerland, where for 3 years she served as Cuba's ambassador to the UN office in Geneva and representing Cuba among other international organizations throughout Europe. She holds a bachelor's degree in international economic relations from the Raul Garcia Higher Institute of International Relations in Havana, Cuba. She has credentials in the international relations and development field from the International Institute of Social Studies at The Hague in the Netherlands. And it is with profound pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce you to collectively, our ambassador.
Dear friends, but I would say more than friends, dear sisters and brothers of Cuba. From New York, from Harlem, from Latin America, from other parts of the world, and from Cuba. On behalf of our permanent mission to the United Nations, I would like to sincerely send to all the organization that has done a lot in order to prepare this great event, to celebrate the light of our common leader, of our Fidel. And it's a matter of great emotion for all of us that this event takes place precisely here, in a place that is a symbol for the Harlem community, for this city and for this country. For the Cuban people, this is an emblematic place for the same reason it is for you as well. And also for what it means to Fidel, his relationship with leader Malcolm X, who gave his life in this place. We are also here to pay tribute to his memory, to the memory of Malcolm X. Particularly difficult to put into short words the sense we are filled with when we speak about someone who we see as a father, someone which is very close to all of us, and who is by far a revolutionary leader of worldwide renown. Allow me simply to refer to moments of his life that connected him to this city. And
hero Jose Marti did while preparing the necessary work to free Cuba from Spain. Little more than 60 years later, Fidel also arrived in New York in October 1955, with the same purpose, by the way, to unite these wheels of patriotic and honorable Cubans and Americans for reorganizing the revolutionary movement and raising funds for the fight. It was New Jersey, the place where Fidel organized the first out of 6 revolutionary clubs founded in the United States. However, it was precisely here in Manhattan on October 10, 1955, in an event that involved the presence of nearly 800 people, when he made that historic commitment that you all know. In 1956, we will be free or we will be martyrs. The promise, as you know, was fulfilled. And in 1956, the Grand Majest set sail from Mexico on a journey to history, the history that we shared. But let us recall now his first trip to New York after the triumph of the revolution. He came in September 1960 to attend the United Nations General Assembly, but this time as the victorious head of government to the rebel Island. Let us then go through the scenario of that new encounter with the New York City. Only 1 year after the triumph of 1959, the hostility of the United States government against Cuba was growing exponentially. The Central Intelligence Agency was practically ready for the mercenary aggression that would take place in the spring of the following year in 1961. And here, in the United States, the Cuban delegation was received by the authorities with deep hostility. Additionally, the civil rights movement here was filled with such effervescence, and its main component was the fight against racial discrimination. So, within this context, the delegation of Barbudos, led by Commander-in-Chief Fidel, arrived in New York. Even though he had many things to speak before to the United Nations General Assembly, and he did it, loud and clear, to spread all over the world the truth about the young Cuban Revolution and to express his views on the serious international problems of the time, he did not forget to mention the helping hand provided to him by the people of New York. In that speech, in his speech at the UN, Fidel said, and I quote, "When we were forced to leave one of the hotels in this city and came to the United Nations headquarters, while efforts were being made to find accommodation for us, a hotel, a humble hotel of this city, a newer hotel in Harlem offered to rent us rooms. In this community, a welcome committee had been created. One of its members was Malcolm X. The extraordinary African-American leader with whom Fidel had a meeting at his hotel room. I think a picture is there, is honoring us here. This is how, thanks to the solidarity of these people, of your solidarity, Fidel arrived at the Hotel Teresa in the heart of Harlem. Fidel also left her heart here. Nearly 20 years later, in 1979, he came back to this city to make a speech at the UN in his capacity at that moment as president of the non-aligned movement. And then in the years 1995 and 2000, in these two last occasions, he could feel once again the warm sense of solidarity and friendship of these people. In the emotional meetings organized here, some of you had mentioned that before, and I really appreciate and thanks to those that were here and has organized everything for our Fidel. Fidel always returned that affection with sincerity and love. Just to recall, among many examples, the strong friendship he felt for Reverend Lucius Walker. Founder, a great friend of Cuba, founder of the movement Pastor for Peace. Lucius and Fidel felt deep respect for each other. Fidel and the people of Cuba were able to appreciate from the first moments the force of his character, the faithfulness to the principles he defended, even putting his own life at risk, his courage and his strong faith. Cuban people will never forget those images transmitted worldwide, showing Pastor for Peace activists led by Lucius confronting heavily armed troops in the border with Mexico, seeking to take to Cuba that precious solidarity cargo. Just like Fidel, Lucius was a soldier of ideas. He asked his ashes now rest in Havana, obeying his last will. His ideas, just like Fidel's ideas, are here with us in our hearts. No reference can be made as to demonstration of solidarity from the United States to Cuba without mentioning those precursors who, defying the threats of a government against everything that implies solidarity with Cuba, formed the Venceremos Brigade. At the end of the turbulent 60s, and where the leaders of Pace of Heroic forget hero Carlos Muñiz Varela, member of the brigade who was killed by the enemies of the Cuban Revolution. They were seeking to prevent a normal relation to be built between our peoples. The Venceremos Brigade always held a special place in Fidel's thinking. I would like to recall fragments of his words dedicated to the brigade in a speech he gave on July 26, 1970. All of you know what means July 26 for Cuban history and for Cuban Revolution. Has been mentioning this evening a lot. Referring to them, to the Venceremos Brigade, and to the people of the United States, Fidel said, and I quote, "We are the pioneers of the revolutionary path, but not the only ones. One day, sooner or later, we will become the peoples of Latin America, not to confront a powerful imperialism, but to live in unity with a great people, the United States people. We are not the enemies of those people. Therefore, we can say to the US people and to those youth who came here to help us, who have sent us such a moving and expressive message, yes, all of us together with the American people, we will win. We will win." And Fidel, with you, won. As you well know, those demonstrations of friendship and solidarity of Fidel towards these people were also extended to the youth, based on his idea to provide them with the opportunity to study medicine in Cuba. A group of humble boys and girls from different areas of the United States, several of them from New York and from this very same neighbor of Harlem, have been able to become doctors and work in poor and African American communities. My respect to those young doctors that are here, graduated from the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba. We do not regard this as something extraordinary, let me say. Just like Fidel showed us, this has been a way to repay a debt of gratitude, solidarity, and friendship that looks beyond the economic dimension or any other type of consideration. We are just paying our debt with humanity. Thus, in many ways, Fidel expresses his friendship for these people. And with the passing of years, despite hostile attitudes, despite the blockade that is still causing us hardships, his feeling towards the American people remained unchanged. And in his everyday contact with our people, this was the perception he conveyed to us. This was and this is Fidel, because he is still alive in each one of us, because nobody will ever be able to speak in the past about Fidel. It was undoubtedly a real privilege for us, but I'm certain that for all of you as well, to have joined him during these years of struggle has been a great privilege. From him, we Cubans learned that for a socialist revolution to be true, it should maintain firmness on principles. There must be no doubt that whatever the scenario may be, friends, we will continue to uphold these principles today and in the future. Be sure of that. His entire life work dedicated to build that better world we believe possible. He believed possible. Multiplies in yourselves, in your unwavering solidarity towards Cuba, and reaffirms our commitment to be faithful to Fidel's legacy. We will never forget the strong support that we have always received from the sons of Harlem and from all the honorable sons of this country. These are the same who, in an increasingly growing number, wish the lifting of the blockade and the establishment of normal and civilized relations between both countries without any conditions. Because just like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Lucius Walker, and Fidel had a dream, and we, the Cuban and American peoples, are the heirs of that dream. I'm deeply convinced that we will continue to struggle so that this dream can come true. Allow me to conclude with a short phrase by Fidel that expresses his feelings for this community and its people. He said it here during that visit in 1960, when the delegation had to decide where to stay after being expelled from the hotel where they had been lodged originally. The invitation for him to stay at the Hotel Teresa had been made already, and the reaction of the authorities of the time was to try to prevent it by offering free accommodation in some other hotel to the delegation of Cuba. Fidel was asked what this decision was, or what his decision was, and he replied without any hesitation, "I'm going to Harlem." He said, "I'm going to Harlem because there is where my best friends are. There is where our best friends continues are. Viva Fidel! Long live the friendship and solidarity between the peoples. Hasta siempre, comandante. Hasta la victoria siempre. Patria o muerte. Thank you.
another veteran of this movement, another longtime steadfast supporter of the Cuban Revolution. We're going to hear next from Jaime Mendieta of Casa de las Americas. He's been there every time for more than half a century when our communities have come together in support of Cuba. He's one of the founding members of Casa de las Americas, a New York-based organization of Cuban immigrants in support of the Cuban Revolution. I believe it's the oldest Cuban solidarity organization in the US. Beginning in 1955 as the July 26th Committee, with the purpose of supporting the armed struggle that was underway in Cuba. This group was renamed Casa Cuba shortly after the triumph of the revolution in 1959, and it later became Casa de las Americas. Through all of these years and up to today, Casa de las Americas has been a hub for the Cuba Solidarity movement in New York, a key site in every struggle that this movement has faced, most recently in the victorious fight, and we can't go without mentioning it, to free the Cuban Five, who are home today. Jaime Mendieta, standing with other comrades, continues Casa's important legacy. Please join me in welcoming him now.
Well, this is a beautiful event. This is a beautiful tribute. We really have to thank the people that put it together the love that was put into this is obvious. So let's hear it for the committee that put this together. The ambassador covered pretty much the 1960 trip of Fidel to the UN in Harlem, the meeting with Malcolm X, all of that. So I'm going to go into the trip before that, 1955, was Fidel's first trip to New York. Fidel came to New York to organize. He met with Cuban organizations, with the Orthodox Party, the Authentic Party, and the Cuban Labor Organization. He welded these three organizations into the 26th of July movement in New York and in the New York region, other nearby cities. The leaders of at that time were Amadou Diallo, Juan Miguel Marquez. Those were two main leaders. The 26th of July movement was the first phase of Casa de las Americas.
The Honorable Anayansi Rodriguez.
Some of us who visited Casa at 14th Street met some of the original pillars of the 26th of July movement here. The, Arnaldo Barron, which is with us tonight, Gloria Barron, Eusebio Valdez, Eva Valdez, and Pablo Stremera. Pablo Stremera was a very interesting person. First president of Casa las Americas, a bus driver from the Sierra Maestra Mountains. He, due to his knowledge of the area of the Sierra, he became the actual courier between Fidel Castro and Barron in New York. Made several trips back and forth, taking, among other things, money and messages and the needs down in Cuba. Stremera was Puerto Rican. He came to Cuba at the age of 11 as an orphan and developed there into one of the leaders of the 26th of July movement. Juan Miguel Marquez was second in command of the Grama expedition. The Grama went aground in December 2, 1956. The expedition, the force started a march towards the Sierra Maestra Mountains when they were ambushed on December the 5th at Gloria del Pio battle. There they became dispersed. Marcos, unfortunately, was not able to hook up with Fidel and the other 12. He was captured by Batista's soldiers, where he was beaten, left for dead. Later on, when they came to dispose of the body, they find that he was alive and he was murdered at that point. Arnaldo Barron and Eusebio Valdez were instrumental in getting Hubert Matthews, the New York Times reporter that broke the story of that Fidel was still alive and still fighting in the Sierra Maestras, and winning battles and doing fine. That news story changed things around. The 26th of July movement became, and Fidel and the struggle in Cuba became a worldwide phenomenon. And it really was a turning point in the struggle. In 1958, Arnaldo Barron was arrested on a vessel, the Orion. The Orion was packed with weapons and 35 uniformed others. Barron said we lost the weapons, but not the initiative, and began a hunger strike, which the hunger strike calling for Batista to end sending the weapons to Cuba. And 5 days later, that happened. There were no more weapons, or at least the United States caved in and said they were not sending any more weapons, which wasn't true. They still sent some weapons through Guantanamo. Yeah, later it was learned that the weapons were being sent. But nevertheless, a major political victory. The three faces of Casa de las Americas were the 26th of July movement, Casa Cuba, and Casa de las Americas. The name changes were due to the massive repression by the FBI on the members, on their families. Even when I joined in the mid-70s, the FBI was still on our case. They went to where I worked. They contacted my ex-wife, all the members of my family, tried to contact me. Of course, none of that worked. But I was actually very lucky that when they called my job at one point, I was standing in the office, and the person said I wasn't there, and then they explained to me, what did you do? The FBI is looking for you. I said, I was able to call who our lawyer was at that moment, Faulkner, a long-time defender of all the just causes. And he immediately called the FBI, and then they were apologizing. Oh, no, we just wanted to ask him some questions about some postal robbery or something, Totally backed down. At that point, they were being weaker than they were earlier with other members of Casa. Truly, Fidel's man in New York and in the United States. It was a great honor to know him, to meet him, and learn about the movement. And so, well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaime. That's some great history. Next, we have Larry Hamm. Thanks, sir. This fiery, I'm going to call him fiery, always on point community activist has been a relentless advocate for Black people and the cause of human rights, and has been at this for more than 3 decades. Under the leadership of Larry, the People's Organization for Progress, POP, an independent grassroots political organization, has been active in the Newark and northern New Jersey area for over 30 years. POP has played an important role in the struggle for quality education, employment opportunities, access to health care, against racial profiling, police brutality, and on and on and on. He's been fighting for justice all his life. Over the past 15 years or so, POP has hosted numerous guests from Cuba, including representatives of the Federation of Cuban Women, the Cuban ambassador to the United Nations, and other staff from the Cuban mission. Welcome, Larry Hamm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comandante Fidel Castro Ruz presente. Brothers and sisters, it's a great honor for me to be here to say a few words to you tonight. I want to thank the committee for inviting me. This clearly is a historical gathering, and we stand in the vortex of history. Of course, we're here to celebrate one of the greatest revolutionaries of world history, Fidel Castro. But I stand just feet away from the greatest revolutionary of the Black liberation movement, just feet away from where Malcolm X was assassinated. And today, February 4th, as has been mentioned earlier, was the day that Amadou Diallo was murdered, but it is also the birthday of another great American freedom fighter, Sister Rosa Parks. Today is her birthday. So we stand in the vortex of history. And I need to get right to the point. If we really love Fidel and everything that Fidel stood for, then we must do everything in our power to ensure the success of the Cuban Revolution. Of course, it goes without saying that one of the great accomplishments of the modern era was the Cuban Revolution, was the fact that a group of committed revolutionaries on a small island just 90 miles off the coast of Florida stood up to the giant oppressor of worldwide imperialism, the United States, and defeated them. But the great accomplishment of the Cuban Revolution was not just the victory of the revolution, but the fact that U.S. imperialism has not been able to derail the Cuban Socialist Project. So we must redouble, triple, quadruple our efforts to do everything that we can, first to ensure that diplomatic relations with Cuba are maintained, but more importantly, we must end the embargo against Cuba. End it once and for all, in our lifetime, in our lifetime. If there's something that we could say positive about the Obama administration, it is that they renewed diplomatic relations with Cuba. But we must take heed and caution from our Native American brothers and sisters who understand that these people speak with forked tongues. They give with one hand and they take away with another. While the Obama administration renewed diplomatic relations with Cuba, at the same time, under the Obama administration, they doubled the bounty on Assata Secure to $2 million we hope that the Cuban people, we know that the Cuban people will not let them take Assata Shakur. We know that the Cuban people will stand and protect Assata Shakur. So we have a lot of work to do. I was 17 years old when I really began to learn about the Cuban Revolution. The great revolutionaries Fidel Castro and Che Guevara and many others. And while we are here to celebrate the icon of revolution, Fidel Castro, we celebrate not just Fidel, but the entire Cuban people who stood steadfast and in solidarity with revolutionary struggles all over the world. And how did I learn about Fidel Castro? I learned about Fidel Castro through a great revolutionary that the city of Newark produced, Amiri Baraka. It was Amiri Baraka who taught many of us, including Brother Zaid, about not just the Cuban Revolution, but all revolutions. And it was Amiri Baraka that he had a bookstore called Nyumba Ya Ujima, the House of Cooperative Economics. And it is there that I bought my first copy of History Will Absolve Me by Fidel Castro. So many of us today, we are revolutionaries because of Fidel Castro, because we were inspired by example. And lastly, the best way that we can pay tribute to Comandante Fidel, the best way that we could uphold his great legacy is to make revolution right here in the United States of America. That is the greatest tribute that we could pay to Fidel Castro. Viva Fidel! Viva Fidel! Long live the Cuban Revolution! Power to the people!